What's up, gang? Welcome to Room and Board. My name is Chris George, and today we have another episode of Crowdfunding Countdown. And we've made it to February! Okay, fine, it's January 31st, which means two things. One, I'm a liar, and two, it's Ryan Quinn's birthday today. Now, I'm sure most of you don't know who Ryan Quinn is, but I've got to stay on his good side, or else I'll never get to play Oros. Or finish Pandemic Legacy. But that aside, it is another episode of Crowdfunding Countdown where we take a look at every single board game campaign finishing up this week. And I like to take a look at things when they're finishing up their campaigns because I find that assessing value is so much easier when you have a ticking clock pressuring you to make a decision. If I've learned anything from any movie where they're defusing a bomb, they'd never be able to do it without that time pressure. And this way we get to see most of the stretch goals that have been unlocked and see if there's decent value there or not, or if we should just wait until retail. If it's going to retail, not everything does, but certainly a lot do. But first off, as always, shout out to my new patrons. Okay, fine, we only have one new member this week, but that doesn't mean you don't get a shout out. And it's pretty exciting because it's our third Scott. I mean, unfortunately for Scott, we already have Good Scott and Bad Scott, so he'll have to come up with a third moniker. But thank you to Chaotic Neutral Scott and all my patrons for continually supporting the channel. It meant a lot the last time I said it, and it still means a lot now. Because I'm committed to this channel. I'm committed to putting out as much thoughtful and interesting content that I can muster, while not just adding to the noise that sometimes YouTube can provide. So I really am grateful. These videos take me too much time, and it is directly through their contributions that I can afford to do that instead of selling my body on the streets, which I assume I would do exceptionally at, but I also think Maggie wouldn't be too pleased.
Don't worry, sweetie. I'll let you shake what your Maggie gave
I'm
you.
proven wrong. Goodbye, channel. Here we go. Anyway, let's get into the games this week. And first off, we have Ravaged Stars, Armies of the Veil Touch. Or Armies of the Veil, I should say. I don't know. And this isn't even a board game. It's not even a war game. And it's not even akin to my future profession, a horror game. It's just a bunch of cool new minis that you can use however you want. Probably for war games. That's what they're designed for. Which it barely tells you on the campaign page. So keep in mind, there are no new associated rules. You do not get any sort of game components with this. These are supplementary material for the war games that you have in mind and you think, nah, I don't want the regular minis that came with this game. I want these significantly cooler veil-touched minis who have touched the veil and come back with a bunch of tentacles on their face or scars or whatever. We've all been there. Now, the cheapest bundle that you can get here is $119, and that's for 55 minis. So a little bit more than $2 a mini. And, I mean, you gotta admit, they look really good. This is in conjunction with Lazy Squire Games. They make cool stuff. You can even late pledge for Storm Sunder still, which who knows when that will ever come out. But it has a pretty significant price point on to match, just for a replacement army for a system that probably already has its own armies. So do you really need a replacement? Maybe you do. Or maybe this gives you an extra army to put out on the field to distract your opponent who doesn't know which one they should focus on, in what I assume would be a flagrant disregard for the rules. But hey, you've been touched by the veil. You don't play by these earthly rules. Anyway, if you needed more minis to paint, because if there's one thing that I know about mini painters is that they've painted all their minis and desperately need more and don't have mountains and mountains of unpainted plastic to get through, well, check this one out. This finishes Wednesday at 8:08 a.m. Now, next up, to capitalize on the Book of the Mandalorian craze that's sweeping through the nation, we have Boba Fett's lesser-known cousin, Boba Mahjong. Now, okay, there's no actual images of the classic Mandalorian helmet, but I am pretty sure that it is about the Star War, and not about boba tea. You know, the tea with the little tapioca balls at the bottom, which I really wish was delicious, and I still can't remember if it's actually good or horrible. But I know it is one of the two. And speaking of two, this is a two-player game, plays in about 20 minutes, and the basic game is that on your turn you're going to be making these sets of 3, either in sequence or all of the same number. But when you complete one of those sets, you only get to keep one ingredient card and you have to discard the other 2. And then when someone has 10 cards, so they've made 10 sets. The game is over and you use 6 of those ingredients to match up into other sets to score you points at the end. But the interesting part about this game is that whenever you discard cards, they go back into the discard piles, and you can use cards on the top of the discard pile to create additional sets. So you can create up to 3 sets on your turn, and you can chain or double dip on your ingredients. You know, those ingredients you've thrown into the garbage. Scoop them out, they're still good. So you can use those to form more sets and get more ingredient cards finished. And so while it may not have the same thrill as sweeping up the credits that Boba Fett would do, I assume he gets paid a significant amount of credits. It's dangerous work. You could still have a pretty enjoyable time with a decently simple 2-player card game. And this seems like a really good choice if you're in the market for that, because it's only $10 US. That is a fantastic price, and that's exactly the type of thing that I like to see with a card game like this. Unfortunately, they don't have any estimated shipping costs, but they do say that any shipping to the US, the EU, or the UK, because you're not part of the EU anymore, so now we've got to specify it, is going to be custom-friendly shipping, which means you won't have to pay additional custom fees, although I don't know what the shipping will be, and also I'm in Canada, so you get a custom, and you get a custom. But otherwise, it seems pretty fun. A lightweight 2-player game. If you like things like gin, I think you'll be right at home here. The sets of 3 that you're making have to either be 3 of a kind or all in a row. And for $10, that is a great deal for a Kickstarter card game, because they're usually double that. So check this one out. That finishes February 3rd, Thursday at 2:59 a.m. Now, if you've ever wanted to learn to be a dungeon master, our next game, Adorablins, maybe that one. I already forget. Well, either pronunciation, this game might be a good place to start. And that's not a joke either. This is described as a pocket-sized storytelling game. One player plays the narrator and sets the scene for all the other Adorablins. And if you don't know what an Adorablin is, well, it's just like a tiny little goblin that is adorable, that does all the same things we do, but is in a different universe. Adorablins. They're just like us. Except they're actually adorable, Charles. Now stop holding on to oversized mugs and cupcakes and trying to make yourself look cute. You're not fooling anyone. But the premise of this game is that your adorable friend, who is not you, the Adorablin, has fallen through one of the many portals that pepper across your land. And you've got to travel through and rescue them, bring them back to their home. That's the general premise, and the narrator will tell you what's going on, and you'll roll dice to see if you accomplish those specific skill checks. The description of the game really feels like it's adorable dungeon master training. Maybe you've always wanted to run a session. Maybe you've wanted to try out running a session on some non-committal friends. This one might be for you. I don't think it would be super enjoyable when it's aimed at adults, although I could be wrong. But I think this could be a really decent game for kids, especially getting them into that role-playing genre. Although, I guess for adults, it depends how R-rated your adorable adventures are going to be. Who knows? Maybe your teacup got sucked into a portal to an adult movie theater, and the Adorablins have to run through the aisles. I presume that they're really small, or else this isn't nearly as funny as I expect it to be. You don't want to see these cartoonish giant figures running around. They've got to be small in this scenario, but they got to run through the aisles and find that teacup before their innocence is lost, I guess. And this one is also a really good price for a pocket game. We are starting off the week right. I mean, Veil touched replacement parts aside, but it's $14 US for a physical copy or $9 for the print and play. And that's not too bad, especially if you are in the US, because shipping there is $3. Otherwise, it's like $8 to Canada or the EU, which again is okay as these sorts of things go. So if you feel like getting adorable in the tortured dungeon of the basement of the abandoned church right beside the mental institution ward of the Supermax prison where they've just had a bunch of escaped convicts running amok everywhere, well, get your cute self ready for adventure. And you have until February 3rd at 8 p.m. to decide. Now, up next, we have a game that I haven't heard of, so it probably is doing horribly. Marvel Zombies by Kumun. I think that's how you pronounce the company's name. Okay, fine, we have Marvel Zombies. It's raised over $5 million. By the time you're watching this, maybe it's 5.5. It will likely be Kumun's best-selling game of all time, and yet I still think they should be disappointed with the current total. Because at this point, my initial guess of them finishing with 7 to 9 million might be right. And that's just pathetic, raising more money than I'll ever see in my entire lifetime in 16 days? Losers! And it almost feels like this isn't necessarily the right time to cover this one either, because there will be this big boom near the end of the campaign. That's always how these things work, and you might unlock a bunch more stretch goals that might make it worth it to you. But I think now is an appropriate time to be able to consider the value that you are getting and to have been able to sit with it for a long enough time to decide if this game is right for you or not. I mean, if your goal is to get a bunch of plastic pieces, you are certainly getting more than Veil Touch. That's something. At the current pace they're setting, currently, at the time that I'm filming this, they've unlocked 52 extra figures through their daily unlocks and stretch goals, and by the end of the campaign, it'll be over 70 extra figures for sure, because they've said that it's going to be more than any other campaign ever, and Marvel United had something like 68 or 69, so of course they'll probably just get 1 or 2 more. And so you throw that on top of the 87 figures that you get in the core box, although 35 of them are boring S.H.I.E.L.D. agents and 28 more are slightly less boring agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You're looking at 157 to 160-ish figures if you buy that base pledge. And you're also looking at a minimum of, coincidentally, 160 US dollars or 200 Canadian just for that base pledge once you factor in the shipping. So you'll have to decide if that's worth it to you or not. Or if you'd be fine with getting the retail boxes probably for 50% of that or close to it when the boxes inevitably hit retail. I'm not going to go too much into it. I did a whole 30-minute video on the 5 reasons you shouldn't back Marvel United. Well, I did a video on that, but this video was the 5 reasons you shouldn't back Marvel Zombies. And honestly, those reasons still hold pretty true to me, as well as the reasons why I would be excited. But it's in its final week of the campaign, and at least wait a couple more days before making your decision. Don't leave it till the end. You might get swept up in the unlock, money count. That fervor I know is very exciting. At this point, it really doesn't look like they are going to offer just an X-Men base pledge, which seems so silly to me. It's like CMON doesn't want to make money. I don't know. I really don't know about this one. I had so much hype going into this campaign, and my hype really quickly fizzled. And really, all I'm hyped about right now is that I didn't pledge at the $1 level, so I don't have to get 4 emails a day about how great these minis will look when a professional paints them, and how inferior my unpainted copy will be. Anyway, if you are interested in that, that finishes up Thursday at 9 p.m. Now, conversely, we have our other over $1 million Kickstarter campaign of the year, finishing up just 2 hours later, with Final Girl Season 2, and this is one that I've really gone in the opposite direction of. I started out with literally 0 hype for this one. This is one I thought, I haven't heard of it yet, I'm not interested. Okay, more so that I don't really play solo games, but this is one that I think has a little bit more merit than just another Zombicide, because it's just another 5 Final Girls. You get 5 of them. More is always better, right? Anyway, you can watch my 5 reasons you shouldn't back Final Girl video to get a recap on what I am excited about and the reasons why I'm probably not going to back it. I'll try not to repeat myself too much, but if you don't know, it's a solo game. You move your figure around a map, trying to rescue victims so that you can power yourself up and eventually take down the big bad boss, the deranged serial killer who's hunting you and everyone around them. It's a horror film in a box that you play by yourself. And the gameplay goes forward as such. Basically, you're going to pick an action, something like walking, and you're going to roll to see if you accomplish that action, or if you just trip over your shoelaces like an idiot. You can't even walk, Dolores. How are you going to take down this serial killer wielding a chainsaw? But what I do really like about this game is, after having looked into it, the amount of replayability that you get in just one of the boxes, I feel, is really significant. Because you have all these different expansions bundled in. You have these feature films. You can get 5 for this season. There were 5 in the first season, and they all give you a new boss and a new location and a couple new characters to play with. But you definitely don't need to get all of them. Just spend the $40 on the base game, because you have to spend $20 for the core box, which gives you all the tokens, and then $20 on whatever feature film you want to play. That's how they get you. But just at that $40 level, or even $60 if you wanted to mix and match, I think that is more than enough content for what you will need. and would probably be a pretty good place to start. Because it looks fun. I mean, it does look fun. I'm not going to get it. And you can probably get it at retail, although make sure you check with your game store that they will carry that specific feature film that you want, and it won't be one of the ones that they don't carry, right? Because they're all kind of like individual expansions, and I don't see game stores necessarily carrying all 10 at the same time. So if you are interested, that's my recommendation. Just reach out to your retail channels, see if you can get it for cheaper, save on the shipping, maybe use that money you would have spent on the shipping to buy an additional box set. But if you are interested in that one finishes up February 3rd at 11 p.m. Now, next up, we have the Storymaster Tales Threatlore Town. And maybe you can tell by my change of enthusiasm, but I like this campaign for two main reasons, and both of them are silly. Number one, in their video, they have all of these 5-star reviews. They're just popping up everywhere. Tons of fun for you and your friends, regardless of gaming level. 5 stars. I mean, that's a great review. Who said it? You don't know. Nobody. The video did. There's no attribution whatsoever. They could just be making all of this up. And I don't know if it would have been better if they'd included the names of people who are clearly just friends. Fantastic game book for all ages. Arnie. Anyway, that's my first favorite part. My second favorite part of this campaign is that they've apparently done a bunch of books like this threat level Midnight Town. Previously, you could get Weirding Woods. Ooh, spooky. Draco Deep Dungeon. That sounds pretty ominous. And the scariest of them all, Towers. Just plain towers. Just towers. It makes me laugh so much. They just fell off the rails with their naming. And even better, when you look on Amazon, they've done more books than they've advertised, because you can also get even deeper into the woods and even deeper into the dungeons. But there is no Towers sequel, or at least not one that I could see, which is the most disappointing part of all, because that's gotta be their surefire hit. Anyway, in this campaign, you can get this book for £22 or $38 Canadian, and if you look on Amazon, all of their other ones are for about half that. And so if you are interested in this, and I'm about to tell you what it is in a second, I would just opt for one of their earlier versions that are kind of tried and true and are cheaper. That's just a no-brainer to me. But the book itself actually does look pretty neat. It's just a light RPG, and it has a narrator if you're playing by yourself, so you can scan a QR code and hear about the setting that you're in and hear the choices that you get to do. And it's a basic, simple, enter a place, decide to do something, roll to see if you succeed. But the artwork looks really cool. The narration feels fun. I love that I love the commitment they've done to give the whole book narration. Yeah, it's pretty neat. It kind of reminds me of this RPG book that I know I've brought up before, and I still cannot figure out what it was. Please, somebody tell me. It had these 2d6 in a plastic thing on the cover, and it had these 2d6 in a little plastic thing on the cover, and you would roll for whatever check happened, and it was a choose-your-own adventure book with rolling, basically. But when you get to the edge of the map, you had to buy another book so you could keep on going, or you had to turn around and you couldn't sail on that ship to another continent or something. It was so cool. Maybe there was a sunset on the front. I don't know. I remember really enjoying myself there. Maybe not as cool as Towers, but it was still pretty neat. I mean, again, I wouldn't do the Kickstarter, but if you're looking for a lighter family RPG, hey, my buddy Arnie told me that it's a fantastic book for all ages, 5 stars. So how can you really compete with that recommendation? Anyway, if you are interested, that finishes February 4th at 6:59 p.m. Now, next up, we have a game called Fumble, and I'll be honest, I'm only including this in the list so that I can talk about Bounce Off. I don't know if you've heard about Bounce Off. I'll tell you, everyone on my Discord can't stop talking about Bounce Off. They love it over there. They all say it's their favorite game of all time, which is very surprising considering the diverse group of people we have over there. And the diverse opinions doesn't matter. Bounce Off still always tops as their #1. And I mean, I can see why. So I'm sorry to tell you, Fumble, you will never be Bounce Off. But because all of my patrons especially love ping pong based games, I decided to talk about this one. I mean, I've heard from various sources, all named Arnie, that replacing all of the War Suns in Twilight Imperium 4 with ping pong balls makes the game infinitesimally better. But this is a game, you pass a card around the table, everybody at the same time. It's speed, quick, 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 until you have 5 of a kind in your hand. See, it's 5 of a kind, so you can't just do this with an ordinary deck of cards. And then someone grabs the orange ping pong ball in the middle, and then everyone else has to fumble to grab the white ping pong balls, and then you gotta bounce them into a cup, and you get points, and whoever gets to 21 points wins. It's football points, I say as someone clearly invested in a lot of football. There's football points. 6 for the touchdown, and then 3 for your field goals to get them into the cup. I mean, sure, but if you want a ping-pong based game, well, Bounce Off is an intense strategy game for 1 to 100 people, where you attempt to combine balls on the grid in a pattern to achieve complete bounce-off supremacy of the galaxy. So I'll leave it to you to decide which one you should be picking up this week. Hey, it's not me, it's everyone I speak to. They love it. And it's in the top 13,314 on Board Game Geek. Bounce Off is, so you know it's pretty good. We're moving on. Now next up we have a game called Trading Post, and I actually love this project because the creator says that it's based around an inside joke with their friends about who could purchase the trading post the quickest in Citadels. And I mean, I really just love when that sort of metagaming happens. It always happens whenever I play Love Letter, that every turn someone will guess that I have the Baron or Bane, depending if you're playing Batman version or not. And I inevitably always will. It's great. I love that that inspired an entire game, that sort of inside hilarity that can happen when you're playing a board game. But it actually looks like a neat little game. You're gonna roll some dice to get your choice of lands. That's not the interesting part to me. Although you do have a set number of dice and you have to allocate them on either land, and then the total highest number wins. So you have to choose, do I hedge my bets to try to get this good one, or do I split them so that I can at least get something decent? And then these lands will produce resources for you, and you'll collect blueprints that you can use to build buildings, and the person with the most points based on the lands that they have and the buildings that they have wins at the end of the game. But there's also this moment where a frenetic trading happens. It's real time. You can trade as much with whoever you want, or the bank as well. And it only stops when the majority of players go, trading post closed. But I like that free-for-all trading. It's really reminiscent of Chinatown for me, which is always a good thing. You play for 7 rounds and then see who gets the most points. Now, it's $39 US or $50 Canadian, and I get why this is so expensive. It's a first-time publisher. You're not going to be dealing with large print runs, but I really wish that this was somewhere in the $20 range instead of that $39 range. But mechanically, it looks light and fun. Similar weight, I'd feel, to Citadels, which is great. Again, I just wish it was that similar price point. However, I'm happy that it's funding, and if you are interested, that is February 6th at 10:22 p.m. Now, next up, we have CoLab, and this has the tagline of Mad Science, Competitive, Dice Worker Placement, Tableau Engine Building Game for 1 to 4 players. I mean, how could you not be excited with all those buzzwords? But it looks pretty decent. My favorite part about this game is that you're going to be sending out your main character around the board. Yeah, who cares? But you're also going to be sending out these minions on the board to collect resources, and they're going to hold little dice on their heads. But these minions are dumber than any minions I've ever met. Or perhaps they're the perfect minion because they're completely subservient to whoever is beside them. And they'll work for whoever's closest to them. Now, it's not the easiest rulebook to read. They have a draft rulebook, but the basic turn structure is pretty simple. You're going to move your scientists to a lab around the board. Those are the little triangles. They're surrounded by what are called towers. And also either send out or retrieve a minion, depending on if they're all out there working hard to get you resources. Or you're going to have to basically skip a turn and put your scientist in the middle and collect all of your dice again and re-roll them, which will fuel your minions so you can send them out so that they can get more resources. Now, your scientist can always go to any lab regardless of if there are other players there, so it's not going to be a case of you put a minion out and then your opponents just swoop in and block you completely. No, you'll always be able to use your minion, but the strategy will come into placing your minions in a way that will benefit you and not your opponents. Then whenever you move, you're going to either collect those resources or build a card and put it into your own little tableau. And when someone has built 12 cards, the game is over, you add up your points, you see who wins. And this premise also surprises me that it has an estimated runtime of 90 to 120 minutes. But I guess there are a lot of choices where to send your minions, when to capitalize on the minions that are out there, when to build specific cards, how to assemble your own card grid. So I guess that would slow things down. It's only $45 US or $58 Canadian, which is a nice price point, but that is for the retail version. If you want the deluxe version, which gives you the minion minis, so of course you want that one, it's $60 US, $77 Canadian, which after shipping it's not worth it to me for it to be like $100 game, especially because they have a big thing saying that retail will be in stores. So if you want to get it, you will have a chance to get it at a later time in that retail version. And there aren't a ton of Kickstarter exclusives that you're going to be missing out on. But if you are interested and you live in the US, it's $12 shipping to US. So that's a pretty decent shipping amount. 22 to Canada, so not that great there. I do think the little minions are more adorable than any adorable Adorablin out there, but I don't think it's $100 for me. But it's also on Tabletop Simulator and Tabletopia, which is great because you can try it for free. So if you're interested, that's CoLab. See what they did there? Because the lab, because you're working in a lab, mad scientist lab. And it finishes next Tuesday, February 8th at 2:33 p.m. And finally, we have Total War Rome, which is based off the video game series of the same name, where you're promised to get to do a lot of things. You play as one of the leaders of Rome, Carthage, Greece, and Gallo-Germania. You'll conquer new lands, develop your faction, claim territories, recruit epic armies, fight enemies in epic battles, build barracks, markets, and walls, raise taxes. Oh, what a fun thing to do. Spy, riot, trade, and so much more. Or should I say, and so much war. I don't know why you guys still tune in. There's a lot of stuff in this game. It's a big game with a lot of complex items, but the flow of the game actually seems relatively simple. You're going to bid on initiative order. Then you'll choose a card to assign to your special, sneaky secret agents. Who knew 007 used to work for Carthage? And then they'll run around the board doing various sneaky stuff like spying on the enemy or setting up alliances for that turn. And once they've done their stuff, you'll get money for all the places you control, and then you'll fight everyone and everything to death. What was that last part? Oh, you just fight everyone and everything to the death. But then you get to spend your money on upgrades and barracks. Who doesn't love shopping? And I do actually like the battle mechanics a bunch as well. You take a card, you put it face down, that's going to be what army unit you're sending forward to participate in that battle, and then you're going to get to roll dice depending on who you chose and flip over those cards simultaneously and see who wins the battle. So you have that hidden outbluff your opponent, which I always particularly like in games. Each faction has its own unique faction board, so you can get your own different upgrades depending on what you're playing as. I think that's really cool. This feels like the gamer's version of Risk. This is what Risk wishes it was. I've never played the video game, but just looking at this board game makes me want to. Now, that being said, maybe I can get the video game for cheaper than the £75 or $100 Canadian that I would have to spend on acquiring this game, plus shipping, £18 in shipping to get it to Canada. But mechanically, from what I've read, it looks pretty solid. Much more than I expected it to be. This is the type of game that kind of perked me up. I was dreading, I didn't know what I would be walking into if it would be dry, but it actually seems really dynamic and interesting. Now, this is going to be a long game. You can tell just by the estimates of 150 to 180 minutes, and that's probably conservative. But there's so much upgrading that you can do throughout if you struggle to get these 25 victory points that it feels like it will be a cool one. I mean, I also don't see you getting it to the table over pretty much everything else on your shelf because of its length and grandeur, but I still think it looks pretty neat. Plus, on the stretch goals side of things, you get an additional mini expansion and you get some metal coins and some upgraded bases. Not bad for that $100 Canadian price point. That's cheaper than 100 US. It's like 82 bucks US. Pretty decent. The stretch goals definitely help make up for that shipping cost that you'll have to spend. So if you are interested in that one, that is February 8th at 4 p.m. And that's it. That's it for the week. We made it. Another week gone. And so every week I do a pick for me and a pick for you. And let's just jump right into the pick for me, which is going to be Total War Rome. Maybe you could tell from my enthusiasm just talking about it now, but I think it looks really cool. I think it looks really long. And I think it looks like one of those games you'll play maybe once a year. I'm probably not backing it because of that, because of the length and the investment of time that it will take. Mechanically, it does look really neat and at a decent, not overblown price point. This has been a great week for price points, actually, other than Marvel Zombies. All the price points feel like they are in that potential deal territory, which I really appreciate. So yeah, Total War Rome, that is definitely the pick for me. That was the one that, it excited me. the little upgrades you can do, the amount of different stuff you can spend your money on. Who knows? It may get bogged down in the actual execution of it because the board is big and there's a lot going on. But I think this has potential. So that's my personal pick for me is Total War Rome. Definitely not for everyone. And then my pick for you is a close one. There's a lot of contenders here, but I'm going to give it to Boba Fett's cousin, Boba Mahjong, because I think it's about time Boba Mahjong got the recognition that they deserved. And also just because on the pure deal standpoint of this, $10 for what looks to be a fun Jin-like card game. If you don't like Jin, go away. Just leave the channel and never come back. No, then this won't be for you, obviously. But if you do like those quick, light two-player card games, I think it's unique enough in the mechanics of the discarding that it is worth taking a look at, and I think it is a great price point. So for those two things, that's why it is the pick for you. Otherwise, it was probably going to be Final Girl, but sorry, Final Girl. Boba Mahjong, the bounty hunter. The biggest, baddest villain of them all. Maybe that'll be in Final Girl Season 3. I'll tell you what, if Final Girl Season 3 has the Boba Mahjong feature film featuring a clearly knockoff copy of Boba Fett, I will go all in. I'll get everything from all of the previous campaigns and that as well. Oh, that would be fantastic. Yeah, that's what I'll do. But for now, the pick for you is Boba Mahjong. That's it for me. Tell me, as always, what are you backing this week? I know there are a lot of good games. This is an awesome week to be interested in board gaming. If you're only buying one game in the month, well, luckily it's just hit February and you can get yourself a second one. I know, it's horrible. But please do let me know what you are backing. I'm always interested, and what you're interested in coming up as well, so that I can keep my eyes out for them. That's it. Thanks for watching. Once again, my name is Chris George, and I don't have a catchphrase, but well, my cat is down below. I'm allergic to cats, but we just got a maybe hypoallergenic cat. May or may not stick around. I don't want him to hear that. But I wanted him to jump up so that I could say, but I do have a cat phrase. But that didn't happen, and now I've been outed as just talking to myself in a room with, there is no cat here. There's no one. It's just me. And the silence. See you next time!